In 2010, a bioengineering company called InGen is conducting dinosaur crossbreeding experiments on an island. A scientist drops a candy wrapper on the floor, and it gets sucked in by the airlock in the door. This causes a system failure and reboots the door control system. Everyone starts running away in panic, but a scientist rushes back to close the door manually before a dinosaur can escape. An employee gets stuck inside and begs for help, but his coworker refuses to open the door. Soon, a huge dinosaur grabs him from behind and takes him away as it kills him. In 2027, dinosaurs have been around for 32 years. However, Earth's modern climate and diseases have killed most of them. The excitement of the novelty has worn off and the public has lost interest. The surviving dinosaurs live near the equator because it's the last place on Earth resembling their original prehistoric environments. Humans are forbidden from traveling there. In New York, Martin is stuck in a traffic jam because an apatosaurus is blocking the streets. While he waits, mercenary Zora sneaks into his car to discuss an important mission. Martin's superiors at the pharmaceutical company need dinosaur blood to finish developing a cure for heart disease, so Zora would have to enter the forbidden zone to get it. At first, she turns down the job, but she changes her mind when Martin promises a hefty payment. The duo then goes to the museum to talk to Dr. Henry, who is closing the dinosaur exhibition due to low attendance. It was Henry who told the company to use dinosaur DNA to develop medicine, and Martin wants him to come on the mission to take the samples while Zora acts as the bodyguard. Henry explains they need to take the blood from the biggest dinosaurs because they have the biggest coronary muscles, so he chooses the Titanosaurus from land, the Mosasaurus from the sea, and the Quetzalcoatlus from the sky. All the blood samples must be taken while the dinosaurs are still alive. Henry doesn't want to go on the mission, but Martin changes his mind by pointing out that he'll get to interact with real dinosaurs. The next day, the trio flies to Suriname and meets with Zora's old friend, Duncan. They talked on the phone and he agreed to help, but now he wants to quit because of how dangerous it is. After a long argument, Martin convinces him to take the job by offering even more money. The group takes off on Duncan's boat, and he knows what routes to take to avoid being seen by the government. They take a look at a map of the area, and Henry shows them his special darts. They can penetrate the dinosaur's thick skin if they shoot them at least 10 feet away. They're capable of taking the samples themselves and self-eject, but they only get one shot with each. Meanwhile, Ruben is taking his daughters Isabella, Teresa, and her boyfriend Xavier on a sailing trip across the ocean. On the water, something appears swimming nearby. At first, they think it's dolphins, but the fins look different. Suddenly, the mysterious creature hits the boat and quickly goes away. Ruben climbs down to check and is relieved to see no damage. At that moment, the creature reappears, confirming it's a huge Mosasaurus. This time, it almost flips the boat, but it moves away. Unfortunately, the boat only recovers for a second before it finally falls and the family jumps into the water to avoid getting crushed. Xavier is still inside and the water is keeping the door from opening. While the girls climb back on the boat, Ruben tells Xavier to get the radio from the emergency bag. Once he's found the bag, Xavier kicks the door until he manages to open it and swim out. The boat finishes flipping and Ruben climbs on top of it too, but Xavier finds himself underwater while seeing the Mosasaurus swim by. He rushes to the surface and swims as quickly as he can to the boat while the huge beast follows him. Luckily, the Mosasaurus moves under the boat and goes away while the family saves Xavier. The next morning, the crew wakes up when they receive the family's Mayday signal on the radio. Martin and the chief of security, Bobby, want to ignore them, but Zora thinks they should help. Duncan agrees with her and orders his crew to change routes. Minutes later, Ruben sees the boat coming and shoots a flare to mark their location. After the family is rescued, Zora wonders why a Mosasaurus would attack a random boat, and Henry theorizes the dinosaurs saw it as competition. The family wants to know why the team is looking for that beast, but they aren't told anything. Suddenly, their radar detects something and the alarm goes off right before the Mosasaurus hits this boat too. After the dinosaur makes a jump above the water, Zora gets in position and Henry secures her to the deck. Duncan makes the boat move as fast as possible and Zora gets ready to shoot, but the Mosasaurus makes another jump and the dart falls into the water. The beast is coming closer, so Duncan has to start turning the boat to avoid a crash. Henry brings Zora another dart, but the dinosaur pushes the boat and makes her fall. Zora holds on with her legs and Henry helps her up. Now she can shoot the dart, and this one does land on the creature's body. The dart quickly takes the blood sample, and once the vial is full, it gets ejected. It even has its own little parachute, so it falls slow enough for Henry to catch it. While the crew celebrates, Henry and Zora put the vial in a cold suitcase. Henry admits that he's starting to have doubts about the mission, saying he knows the company will only give the new cure to those with money, and that science should be for everyone. At that moment, the group is surprised to discover that the Mosasaurus has come back with a bunch of Spinosaurus. Henry is surprised to realize these two species have entered a symbiotic relationship. Bobby rushes outside and opens fire, but all his shots fail. He just moves to another corner and keeps trying, ignoring Duncan's warning. Suddenly, a Spinosaurus jumps out of the water behind Bobby and catches him with his mouth before going back to the sea. Then the Mosasaurus makes another big jump and its landing shakes the boat, which leaves co-pilot Nina hanging over the edge. Isabella slides off the railing and almost falls through the railing, so Ruben hurries to grab her hand. He pulls her back up before the mosasaurus takes a bite and only gets the railing. The boat manages to get back in position and Nina gets to safety. Duncan turns the boat toward the rocks because dinosaurs can't enter shallow waters. Zora thinks they'll likely crash, so she gets all the life jackets ready, while Henry secures the sample and some supplies. Teresa gets on the radio and tries to call for help, but Martin rushes to stop her without explaining that they're doing something illegal. When Teresa pushes him off, she slips back and falls over the edge. She manages to hold on, but Martin doesn't help her and she ends up falling. Xavier immediately grabs a rescue can and jumps into the water to go after her. Thinking the boat is going to sink, Ruben puts a life jacket on Isabella and they jump too. The next time the mosasaurus hits the boat, it pushes it against a rock and drags it to damage it. Henry and Zora have to hide to avoid the rock, while the engine explodes, knocking down crew member Leclerc. Duncan manages to keep the boat moving and finally reaches the shallow area, so everyone jumps into the water while the mosasaurus moves away. The boat crashes into the shore and gets stuck on top of a rocky formation. The team swims to the shore with the bags of supplies. Unfortunately, when Nina is about to grab one, a Spinosaurus surprises her from behind and captures her with his mouth. The others can only watch how her body is taken away. Martin tells the team they can't predict what they'll find on this island because all the dinosaurs here are mutated from the experiments done by InGen back in the day. Zora cuts the fence around the jungle so they can start exploring, and she reveals that she arranged for a rescue helicopter to come if they don't get in contact in 24 hours. It'll be around for only 2 minutes at sunset, so they need to be done before then. After walking for a while, the team is forced to get into a swamp to keep advancing. Zora asks Martin about Teresa's fall, and Martin pretends he didn't see anything. She keeps feeling something brushing her leg, but it isn't until they reach the shore that a huge eel jumps out and startles them. Thankfully, it leaves without attacking. The journey continues and Martin stops at the river to drink some water, only to find some military tags. When blood starts dripping on his hand, he looks up and discovers an old helicopter crash on top of a tree. The dead pilot is holding a gun, so Martin uses a stick to bring it down and takes it for himself without telling anyone. Meanwhile, Xavier finds Teresa. Soon Ruben and Isabella find them too, and together they swim until they find a cavern that takes them to the island. They admire the beautiful view and find the pipes left by the InGen labs. Ruben remembers the team mentioning buildings in the area, so they follow the pipes to find them. Moments later, Isabella looks behind a plant and is surprised to find a very small Equilaps. Ruben says it's okay because it's an herbivore, but Teresa scares it off anyway. Xavier tries to bring down a plant and a dinosaur roars nearby, so they must go the opposite direction. When night falls, the group stops to rest by the fire. After Xavier leaves to relieve himself, the Equilaps comes closer and Isabella wakes up. She decides to give it some food, which causes the Equilaps to sleep next to her. While Xavier is peeing, he doesn't hear 2 velociraptors approaching him from behind until they're attacked by a Muttaburrasaurus. Xavier makes sure to stay still while the beasts fight. He even stops his pee from coming out. Once the dinosaurs are gone, he finally lets go. In the morning, Zora's team makes it to a valley where they follow the noises and find a bunch of Titanosaurus. 2 of them are in the process of mating, so Henry thinks they're distracted and gets close enough to touch a dinosaur's leg, which makes him cry. Everything is calm among the herbivores, so Zora easily shoots the dart and gets the sample. Back to the family, they're moving slowly because of Ruben's leg. The Equilaps keeps following them, so Isabella names it Dolores and puts it in her bag, saying she'll take it home as a pet. When they move ahead, they don't see the hill behind a huge tree, and they all fall, rolling down for a few minutes until they land near the river. Ruben smells something weird, and a very scared Dolores runs away. Looking across the river, they can see an abandoned shed. Teresa notices a boat, so she volunteers to retrieve it. She gets in the water and easily crosses the river to reach the other side, where she finds a half-eaten dinosaur body. Suddenly, a Dilophosaurus jumps out and roars at Teresa before running away. It turns out it's scared of the T-Rex sleeping in the bushes. Teresa makes sure not to make noise while entering the shed, startling a bunch of bats that fly away. The boat she saw before is broken, but thankfully there's a bag with an emergency raft. On the opposite shore, Dolores reappears and Isabella tries to get it to leave by throwing food. Teresa brings the emergency raft to the river and doesn't hear her family's whispers when they tell her not to open it. She pulls the lever and the raft is instantly inflated with so much noise that the T-Rex wakes up. For now, the beast is looking in another direction, so Teresa gets on the raft and desperately paddles until she reunites with her family. The others get on the raft too, and Dolores is left behind. At that moment, the T-Rex finally sees them and starts chasing after them. The family paddles as quickly as possible and are shocked to see the T-Rex getting underwater to move faster. The creature soon comes out in front of them, throwing the raft and causing the group to fall into the water. This part of the river has strong currents that push Ruben fast enough for him to dodge all of the T-Rex's attacks. He swims towards some rocks and hides with Teresa and Xavier, but Isabella is missing. Her screaming indicates she's hiding under the raft, which the T-Rex is now trying to bite. Its teeth can't tear the plastic, so it picks it up and shakes it around looking for its prey. Luckily, Isabella manages to get away before the raft is picked up and she rushes to reunite with her people. The T-Rex chases after her. However, the group hides behind the rocks and the space between them is too narrow for the dinosaur to go through. It gives up and walks away while the currents bring the raft to the family. After many hours of climbing, Zora's team makes it to the top of a cliff. The Quetzalcoatlus is a flying carnivore and too dangerous to approach. Instead, they'll take the sample from an egg. Leclerc has experience with rappelling, so he goes down to the nest pretty easily, but Henry needs to gather some courage first. Zora soon follows and teases him when he holds onto the rocks in fear. At the top, Duncan is securing the ropes when he sees a little dinosaur run by. He takes a closer look and discovers that the small creature has entered an ancient temple. Suddenly, Henry's rope slips and he starts falling, but Duncan grabs the rope and saves him just in time. The trio keeps going down until they reach a cave. However, they're shocked to realize this is also part of the temple. There's a big nest in the middle, and Henry starts working on taking the sample without hurting the baby. While waiting, Zora asks Henry what he'd do with the samples. He explains he wants the cure to be open source so everyone can produce it and save millions of lives. On the side of the cliff, Leclerc is securing the ropes and sees the mother come back to the nest. He yells to warn the others, who run to hide behind the columns right before the dinosaur attacks. Henry is soon cornered, so Zora also yells and puts the beast's attention on her while Henry tries to retrieve the sample. Unfortunately, the Quetzalcoatlus kicks and the vial is stuck under it. Then Leclerc throws a tool at the creature's head, causing it to come out. He cries out for help, so Duncan and Martin start pulling the ropes to bring him up. The dinosaur goes after him, so Henry gets to grab the vial. However, the dinosaur is also pulling his rope by accident, and Henry slides out of the temple until he's left hanging over the cliff. Zora has pulled too, but she uses her legs to stop the sliding at the edge and holds the rope so Henry can climb back up. In the struggle, the vial slips off and falls on a lower edge. Ignoring Zora's warnings about the rope possibly snapping, Henry starts swinging until he finally gets the vial back. On top of the cliff, Duncan and Martin are still pulling. However, they're startled by Quetzalcoatlus appearing with Leclerc's body in its mouth. After the beast swallows our friend whole, it starts chasing after the duo, moving quickly to block their way. With the sample suitcase in hand, Martin and Duncan rush downstairs to hide in the temple. At that moment, the rope breaks and Henry falls into the river. He swims to the shore and notices Duncan and Martin coming out of a secret temple passage while Zora simply climbs down using ropes. The sample lands near Henry without breaking thanks to the parachute. Now they can finally go home. In the evening, the family leaves the raft when they finally find the InGen buildings. They scream for help and Zora's team follows their voices so both groups can finally reunite. Teresa immediately tells them what Martin did, so he pulls out the gun to keep everyone at bay while saying that the girl is lying. Then Martin takes the suitcase with the samples and handcuffs it to his wrist. Isabella hears a weird noise and Henry realizes it's the generator, which must be on a timer. After a dinosaur roars, the lights turn on and even some music is playing inside the gas station. Suddenly, two Muttabarosaurs come out and start chasing the group. The humans immediately start running and the group splits. The family ends up inside the gas station where Ruben and Xavier hold the door closed as a Muttabarosaurus keeps pounding on it. They push a rack against the door before they keep moving, but Isabella goes back when she finds Dolores. At that moment, the Muttabarosaurus opens a hole in the ceiling and bursts into the station, so Isabella grabs Dolores and hides in the fridge. The dinosaur comes closer and keeps roaring at the fridge, so the rest of the family throws some objects to distract it. Isabella uses the chance to come out and moves carefully to reunite with her people. While they hide behind the shelves, Ruben follows the direction of the water and finds a hatch. By the time the Muttabarosaurus comes to their spot, the family has already disappeared into a tunnel. The other Muttabarosaurus chases after Henry and Duncan, who run to enter a lab. They also push the door closed and lock it to keep the beast out. Henry realizes that this is the room where all the crossbreeding and mutations happened. There's even a specimen inside a capsule. Duncan looks at the map and learns there's a tunnel system underneath the whole island, which could take them to a boat at the docks. The first Muttabarosaurus goes after Zora outside. She runs fast enough to hide under a jeep with Martin. He opens fire at the dinosaur, but he misses every shot. The Muttabarosaurus comes close enough to capture Martin and throws him over the jeep. Martin makes sure to hold onto the sample and drops his gun, which is grabbed by Zora. At that moment, the rescue helicopter arrives, but they can't see anyone. Martin gets in the jeep and starts driving away, so Zora runs to hide. The Muttabarosaurus tries to stop him, but the vehicle just pushes it away and keeps going. The beast then hears the voices of the family in the tunnels, so it removes a drain lid and starts climbing down. Zora sees this and follows it. Meanwhile, the helicopter is getting ready to go home. Henry and Duncan leave the lab using a tunnel, and Henry shoots a flare to get the chopper's attention. The helicopter turns around, but when it's about to land, a mutated T-Rex known as Distortorex emerges and bites it before tossing it on the ground, causing a big explosion. Then Duncan hears the voices of the family in the tunnels, so he also removes a drain lid for him and Henry to join them. Suddenly, Zora appears next to them and opens fire just in time to shoot down the Muttabarosaurus appearing at the other end of the tunnel, quickly killing it. Afterward, Duncan guides the group through the tunnels to reach the docks. However, the exit is blocked by a gate. As the Muttabarosaurus appear above them, Isabella squeezes through the bars and runs to the control panel. In her bag, Dolores yelps to warn her about the incoming D-Rex. D-Rex. Isabella is terrified but hears her family screaming and concentrates on using the panel to open the gate. The D-Rex is about to enter the tunnel when it hears the noise of Martin arriving in the jeep. The monster stops the vehicle with its huge paw, and the group uses the distraction to leave the tunnel. The second Muttaburrasaurus tries to follow them, but Zora closes the gate to keep it trapped. At that moment, the D-Rex captures Martin and starts eating him, causing him to drop the suitcase with his severed hand. Zora quickly retrieves it before running with the others to reach the boat. Unfortunately, the crane holding the boat is jammed. The D-Rex appears and comes after Isabella, so Henry explains that it's attracted to lights. Duncan lights a flare and moves back to keep the D-Rex's attention on him so the others can escape. He even jumps into the water, moving away from the docks until the D-Rex corners him. Zora cuts the crane chain to release the boat, and the group jumps on it, but they can't activate the engine. The D-Rex is coming back and jumps to attack. However, Ruben manages to start the boat just in time, and the group manages to escape from the island. As they cross the sea, they see a flare in the sky and follow it to rescue Duncan. In the morning, Ruben notices that Isabella still has Dolores. Zora asks Henry about the samples, and they agree they'll share them with everyone.